Hello, podcast lovers. Thank you so much for tuning back in. This is your host, Žana. And today I'm so happy that I'm meeting with a really amazing woman. Me and Britta, we have met at Global Women. And I had the privilege to not only find out that she is from Germany, like myself as well. So we immediately connected on that too. But, her spirituality and her path into becoming awake was very interesting to me. So we had personal conversations, and we are in the middle, I would like to say, building a really beautiful friendship with each other. But Britta, I'm so happy that you're here. First of all, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for your time. I truly appreciate you and you sharing your awakening journey with me on my platform. So, hello, welcome, and welcome.
Hello, everyone. I am so excited to be here with Žana, and extremely honored to be on her podcast. So, with that being said, yeah, like Žana was saying, how we met only a few weeks ago, but right away there was a connection. Of course, the
Mhm.
German connection, but then we really right away knew that there was something much deeper on a much deeper level. And
Mhm.
really quickly we decided that we're connecting, and she asked me on her podcast. So here I am. So thank you for having me.
Of course, I'm really excited about today's conversation. I know that we originally said we wanted to talk to each other in German, but because you're so rooted in the English speaking language, you felt more comfortable expressing yourself in English. So it's no problem at all. While we're building our friendship, we'll build stronger speaking German with each other. And then maybe next round, we can
Sure.
have it in German. But yes, I'm so excited for this conversation because, truly, when we had our first initial conversation with each other in private time, you had shared something with me that really said really deeply with me, where you said that, once you really were completely for yourself and you noticed that solitude, where for the first time in your life, you actually noticed your own self and started to really ask yourself deeper questions of like, am I really happy? Like, am I really doing the right thing for me and my soul journey? And you started to share with me my story, which I would love for you, please, to share again. It set so deep with me because, we as females and as human beings in general, we're such givers, right? Like so many beautiful humans out there, we're such givers and we're wanting to give our best and constantly be there for other people emotionally, mentally, spiritually. But sometimes I feel like we get to a part where it's like, and what about me? Like I feel so empty that I have literally nothing to give anymore, and I don't know how to create my own happiness within inside of me. And in fact, I resonated so deeply when you said, I don't even know how anymore how to be happy because I felt that like that in my life before.
Yeah.
And that's really sad, but it's also the first step to awakening for me. It was, at least in my life. But I would love for you to kind of like share a little bit more. When did your spiritual awakening journey really started, where you're like, I'm noticing I'm becoming different?
Yeah. Okay. Well, it all started, and this seems like such a cliche now because everyone talks about it, but it is the reality. During the mid of COVID, when everything came to a screeching halt. And I'm a business owner. I have a medical spa, and I'm a service business, and I depend on clients coming to my business, and that's how I earn money, right?
Right.
And obviously during COVID, everything shut down, and I I was spiraling. I was like, what's going on? I mean, this was unprecedented, right? None of us have ever experienced anything like this, and we didn't know how long it was going to last or anything. So I would come into work every day, even though we were closed, but I would come to my office, I would sit at my computer, I would try to stop all the auto debits coming out of my account, went to the bank, closed down everything. and just the sheer panic of not knowing what the future would hold. So I would just come into work because I honestly didn't know what else to do or where else to go.
Right.
And I would just sit there, and then I wore black every day, all black. And I wore my down jacket. I just needed to be feeling cozy and like somehow like a cocoon, you know. And
Yeah.
I would just sit in my office and cry. I would just
Mm.
cry and cry. And during that time, I also had my husband and I were not getting along. He was going through his own, you know, bad. It was the same with him, except he worked from home. And the communication was difficult because, men are fixers. They always try to fix things. And
Mm.
and I didn't want like to be told, oh, just do this or just do that. I just wanted to be understood.
Right.
Anyway, we were both in dark places, and it came to the point where I resented having to go home. I just got this horrible feeling because we would be fighting, we weren't getting along, and anyway, so I felt so I couldn't breathe anymore. I felt so constricted, and I
Mm-hmm.
just knew I cannot go on like this anymore in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to make a decision, even though I loved my husband dearly, I couldn't be with him at that time. And
Mm-hmm.
so I moved out. And when I moved out into a small place, all of a sudden I felt so much better. I felt free. I felt like I could breathe. I wanted to be out in nature. I would walk, I would hike. And then one day, fast forward, it was right before Christmas and New Year, I had this calling, and something inside of me said, you have to go to Sedona. So I followed the calling, and I had an acquaintance who has a camper van, and she offered for me to use her camper van and take it to Sedona. So I packed up, drove to Sedona, spent a week there in a campground. I had never been there before. I didn't know how to get there, but obviously, we have GPS. So I was there, and it was just magical. Like my
Mm-hmm.
soul I just opened up, and I had so much gratitude for life. I forgot all about COVID. I just was like in the moment. I was taking it
Mm-hmm.
all in. And I also met somebody recommended a shaman to meet with over there because there's a lot of spirituality, and there's, the vortexes. And I met with this old man. He was a shaman, and I got into his little van, and, totally trusting. He took me to all these different sites. We went to top of mountains.
Mm-hmm.
He some rituals. He chanted. He showed me. He taught me, and I spent like a whole day with him, and it was just so beautiful. And what I noticed throughout that time is that my church, my connection with God was nature.
Mm-hmm.
And it just like resonated with me. And every day I would go on these long hikes, 10 miles, whatever it was. And I felt so good and so fulfilled. Anyway, I got back, and I also had a friend at the time. Well, she's still my friend. Her name was Judan. And she had been studied shamanism for a number of years, and she had become a teacher at the School for Shamanic Arts here in Glendora, California. And when I shared my experience with her in Sedona, she said, Britta, this is so incredible, and I think you may want to sign up for my next introduction to shamanism, the Pampa Messiah. And I did. And that's when I really got to, really integrate and just really get absorbed with nature, with crystals, with stones, with, the meaning of the animals and of the spirits, and just the background of it all, the deep history
Mm-hmm.
of shamanism. And I
Mm-hmm.
learned so much. And so anyway, so I did that, and I also did the second part. So I did that for 2 years. And then for some reason, the school sort of went in different directions. And I realized, you know what, Britta, you don't want to just hang on to one thing. There is so much more. There's so many more aspects to spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I met my teacher, Kisma from Illumination Academy. And I started working with her in her coaching program. I did that for about 2 years, and I learned a lot from her as well, and Nick, who's the mystic next door. And and so it was like stepping stones, one door would open, and then another door would open. And
Mm-hmm.
then I was introduced to this woman who read Akashic records. And that was an incredible experience, because I think I would have to say that when I met with her and she read my Akashic records, and she knew nothing about me, zero. I didn't tell her anything. And when she told me who my spiritual guides were, and I already knew who they were, and I was thinking it, and she
Mm-hmm.
said it out loud, then I was
Mm-hmm.
like, this is not a coincidence. This shit is real. It really works.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so so anyway, and then I just want to kind of back up to, me as a business owner. You have to be so logical and practical, and you don't really have time to integrate all those things. But I realized, me being a registered nurse and in the service industry, I
Mm-hmm.
felt like there was just not enough that I was giving to my clients. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just making them look pretty on the outside, but I felt like there is something missing. I owe them so much more. I know I'm a healer,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to hold space for them in different ways. And so I took a coaching course, more like I wouldn't say a spiritual coaching course, but like a life coaching, like helping people find their way, helping them,
Mm-hmm.
find the right direction. And I
Mm-hmm.
started doing that, and there was still something missing, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And
Mm-hmm.
then last year, I I stumbled upon a course in well, it's actually a certification for hypnotherapy, and I became a hypnotherapist. And I felt like, this is the missing link. This is where I'm able to help mankind, not just my clients, but worldwide. I can be a global healer through hypnotherapy, because hypnotherapy, it really encompasses so many things. It helps people with fears, with phobias, with compulsions, with
Mm-hmm.
really anything that might be going on in life. And
Mm-hmm.
hypnotherapy and coaching really go together hand in hand. And I am so excited, because this is the year 2025 where I know that this is my way to help and heal.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's where I
Thank you
am
so much
today.
for, yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And, I want to kind of like touch base on a few things that you just said. And when you explained that, you were kind of like moved out in your own space after going through some challenging challenging phase within your own marriage and then you moved out. I feel like that's kind of like, if that's fair to say, the first stepping stone when you actually felt for yourself, like, I don't want to be anymore just pretty from the outside, but I want to actually allow myself to tune up from the inside too. Because I feel like, so often when we just focus on our outside appearance, like we go to the gym, we eat good, we use good products for our hair, or we, have good creams on our face or all of that, but we completely leave behind the mental and the emotional and the spiritual aspect, where it's like, if we don't tune up ourselves, it's like a car, like you have to go regularly for oil change. You like, those are things you just have to keep maintaining. And I think you're just really finding your own way in understanding what it is really not for you to only do as a business owner on daily basis, taking care of others and making them feel pretty, but also what is really something to do for you yourself that you haven't prioritized or done prior. And I think that's the main thing, I think, where we talk about COVID, which was obviously really horrendous that had happened globally to anybody. And obviously every human's experience in this was so different. Some experienced amazing things during COVID and some had like the most horrible time of their life in COVID. So, it varied very, very like this. It was not like, oh, this had happened to everybody, except we all went through the same thing. But I feel like for you, it really did sounded like that actually that breakdown of the world really allowed you to actually look for maybe the first time in your life at your own self and really dive deeper into asking and figuring out and wondering of just, is this really how I want my life to be? Is there something that I'm not doing for myself or that I'm not offering to the world because there is so many parts of me that I didn't explore because you were so busy running a business, because you're so busy being a wife, because you're so busy, living this really entrepreneurial lifestyle, that very little in between when we are functioning like that, high function, we don't take the time in a proper way to be like, actually, it's solitude time. Like, it's my prayer time right now. I'm gonna connect to God. Like, I will take some time out for me. Instead, I don't have time for that. I have a client in 10 minutes. I got to jump on this email. I got to send out this proposal. I got to open the doors to a specific time because you have a physical business with actually hours that needs to be opened. So you have very limited time before and after. And I feel like that to me is so fascinating that you were allowing yourself to just put all of that to the side and just really prioritize your own inner needs, and it's so
Yes.
amazing how God really worked in your case because, it seemed like that he orchestrates so many scenarios and situation and people for you that actually really did help you to level up, to really become into growing into that person that you were created from the very beginning. But
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
whole lot until we get there, right? And so when I hear this, it makes me happy. It makes me really happy because there's nothing that we can buy. Inner peace cannot be bought. Like, inner solitude and inner happiness is literally something. And I know this is going to sound cliche too. It sounds like, we have to create it ourselves, but really that's exactly what it is. We have to create it ourselves and we're responsible for it too.
Exactly.
But I'm so curious to understand, obviously when you were in that current phase of stepping out of your norm and then you came back, like, how did you find your own way to incorporate now the new learned materials before you did all the coaching and before you did the hypnotherapy and before you really branched out into what is Britta really able to do and what is really in her own power wanting to do? But how did you handle that when you came back? Was it kind of like, did you find yourself you're pushing stuff away? Were you like, well, maybe not now, maybe a little later, or did you full force went through it and you're like, okay, I'm I'm ready to explore this more? Or how was your own personal experience with that switch, right? Like that switch that happened in Sedona, and then all of a sudden something is different.
Yeah.
But what did you do with the different piece? Like, you just owned it right away, or did you slowly tap
No,
into it?
yes, actually, I did own it right away. It was almost like something went inside of me and it, I just felt like a different person. It was like that that slowness of like time had slowed down, and it allowed me to slow down, which I was before, I was always like, go, 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 all this outside noise, the whole world. And, you know, and I'm an empath, so I'm always, you know, doing for others, but not doing enough for myself. So I always felt drained of energy.
Right.
And this is the time where I realized, you know, Britta, gosh, you need to re-energize yourself. You need to take care of yourself. And during that
Yeah.
time, I also realized the need to the need for self-care, right? So self-care became a priority because you know how they say when, you know, the oxygen comes out of the airplane, you know, you put it on yourself first before you put it on the
First.
next person. Um,
Right.
and I have to say that it made me become a much better person, less
Hmm.
selfish,
Hmm.
and kinder, more patient. And I just, I am grateful for that time now because I needed this. And, you know, it's later in life. I mean, these things can happen to somebody much younger
Right.
or even older than me. There is no right time. But I
Right.
think maybe some of it plays into, you know, I had also was going through menopause. And when a woman goes through that time of life, you know, your hormones are
Hmm.
changing, your body changes. But for
Hmm.
me, it was also a time where I realized that life is short, you know.
Right.
I'm
Exactly.
I'm at midlife or past midlife, really. And I started to see the beauty of the present, you know, living more in the present. And I
Hmm.
think that really is what resonated with me. So to answer your question, yes, I embraced all of this new knowledge that I was learning,
Hmm.
and I became so hungry because it's like there wasn't enough time in the day. I wanted to read this book, I wanted to read that book, and I wanted to meet this person and that person because I felt so drawn to
Right.
people who were also going through that same experience and that were on a spiritual path like myself. And
Yeah.
yeah, and so like like I was saying, during that time, I pretty much just absorbed all of it, and I didn't really know what to do with it yet. How am I going to serve mankind? I didn't know, but I
Right.
trusted in the universe that it will come to me and at the right
Hmm.
time, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
still in that process. It's like
Of
every
course.
day is
Yeah.
a new day, and I, you know, I wake up every morning and I'm eager and hungry and
It,
excited.
it sounds like it's just it sounds like that your hunger for life just became so different because now the focus for life is on different emphasis. Like you
Mhm.
said, you know, staying in the moment, staying really present, like being present every single day for what is really currently happening
Yeah.
versus this planner, which I want to admit, and I want to be very truthful about that. That's very German because German culture is very like, we're plan it, we're go after it. It's all detailed. There's no, no, you said you're going to do it. So I have to do it. If you say A, you're going to do B, like, you know, so that culture within inside of oneself really also is something that needs to be tamed because it for me in my eyes a great characteristic to be very reliable and on point, absolutely. But sometimes I felt for myself, you know, that it didn't allow me to be just free in that moment, like because I would put so much on me and I would put so many this and this and this, and the to-do list was every day, and I wanted to get my to-do list done, so I wouldn't allow myself. The self-strictness part was like, no, 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 you put it on the list, so you have to execute the list. it's just an internal mental thing that it was going on with myself. Nobody put a gun to my head. Nobody told me you have to. It had nothing to do with that. It was just coming from inside of me, wanting to fulfill my own promise to me, I guess.
Yeah.
Right. And so, you know, and I feel sometimes that makes it really challenging to really stay in the moment and stay present and to really just be like, you know what? Yeah, there is 3 more things on my list, but guess what? I feel like gonna go. I want to have some ice cream right now. I want to have some frozen yogurt. I actually just want to sit here and read a chapter of this book that I'm so eager, because the world will not fall apart. You know, like
Exactly.
nothing will happen,
Yeah.
even though I still have to write, for instance, a proposal for my business, or I have to get a bill done or an invoice or whatever it might be. Even that will not cause anything to collapse, you know? And I feel like when we start to really honor our own inner requests of like, this is something really that makes me feel good, and it could be as small as literally just taking a walk, or as big as hopping in a car and driving to Sedona over the weekend. You know, it just really doesn't matter. But I feel like, you know, those are the times where becoming awake is really like, are you awake? Are you paying attention to what you really feel though? Are you really in tune enough with yourself to actually say, this doesn't feel good anymore to me? Like when I enter the situation, when I enter the circumstance, how does that really make me feel? Even though this would have been maybe a part of my life for so long prior, but does that still resonate with me today? Is that something I'm still okay taking with me moving forward? Right. And I feel like by you doing that for yourself, you just opened so many doors and so many possibilities. They were so hidden from you, even though in all reality, they were there all the time. You just never took the time to actually listen to yourself. Right. And neither did I. Right.
Yeah.
And so it's actually so simple, but really it becomes a robotic movement when we are so in tune in our lives and we're so busy and we're so, you know, we have kids and we have a spouse and we have elderly parents to take care of, and the list goes on and on. But you
Right.
know, it really does also resonate with me when you said that you're an empath and you're such a giver by nature, to really find a nice harmony, not neglecting the empathic way of you, because I think that's a beautiful creation to be an empath, you know, to really be so attentive to others, but also to be the same way attentive to you, right? Which for me, I don't know how you felt, but I'm gonna throw this question right back at you. When I started to do that, I thought I was selfish, taking taking stuff for me, saying like, you know what? No, until here and not further. So sorry, can't offer the time today, can't offer a call, not able to come and help because this is now time that I need to reserve for myself. When I started practicing that, I felt kind of weird. It made me feel like I'm not a good friend. It made me feel like I'm not, you know, a super attentive a mom to my son in cases where I was like, well, no, son, this is my time. I need this time right now. I like, you need to get busy in your room, like paint a picture or draw, like make some art. How did you feel about that when
Yeah.
that happened for you?
Yeah, I always have been, like I said, I would always put other people before me, and it would almost be like I would feel guilty if I didn't do that. Maybe it's something that I grew up with as a child. I don't know. I'm not blaming my past for it, but I I started to realize, you know, is this making me happy or not? And if I said, this is not making me happy, and happiness is inside, it's not from exterior things. Yeah, of course, it's great to have nice cars, nice houses, all the things. But there's so many people out there that are not happy, that have all those things. And
Right.
so my happiness became number one. And that is not selfish, because if I'm happy, then I can be
Mhm.
of service, you know. The thing about being an empath, you have to be very careful of your energy, because people will suck your energy. There's energy vampires, and you have to make sure that you have that shield and the boundaries in place. And that is something I still have to constantly remind myself of doing, because in the
Mhm.
service industry, you know, people they do want to take advantage. And just as an example, just last year, I I fired 3 clients, and I would never do that before. I would say, oh no, these are valuable clients, they pay me money. But you know what? If you're abusive, you don't treat me with respect, you don't
Mhm.
treat my staff with respect,
Mhm.
then you're not a good fit. And
Mhm.
when I did that last year, I remember I almost feel like it wasn't me. Like something entered my body, and I was like, what the hell just happened? I
Yeah.
did this. And it was
Right.
so empowering. And
Mhm.
afterwards, I felt just empowered, and you know, like, wow, I was able to
Mhm.
do this, and I feel so much better. And you know, my boundaries were in place, you know.
Mhm. And I think that's exactly the empowerment. You
Exactly.
know, when we really allow ourselves to actually say, I'm not okay with this, no matter what the situation might be, just simply in a respectful, calm way to be like, you know what, I'm so sorry, but this is something I'm not going to accept. And if this means that you're not going to be my client anymore, then so be it. If this means you're not going to be my personal friend anymore, then so be it. If this means you and I cannot continue in any kind of relationship, then so be it, right? And I feel like that's really also the segue from the universe to be like, you know what? Finally, here you are. Thank you for respecting yourself. Thank you for, honoring yourself and your own boundaries. Because to me, it's like when I'm asking of those boundaries, I would follow the same boundaries. Like it's not that I'm having these boundaries in place, but here I am being contradicting. I can do this and this, but I'm expecting of somebody else to do that and that. But I feel like when we are really able and ready to give exactly what we're asking in return, and we're not okay to be spoken in a specific way or treated in a specific way, and we just simply say, thank you, but no thank you. I feel like that's really where the empowerment within your own self, like that, because nobody is gonna, nobody in this world will take care of you like you will take care of you. Nobody will. And
Exactly.
so if we don't, then we just don't, and I feel like that's sometimes really where sometimes, mix up can happen, where we then now being so involved with somebody and we kind of have this expectation of their having to treat us a specific way in order for us to be happy or to feel respected, when really it starts with us first,
Right. Yeah.
and I think exactly, what we go through in here is really what we attract from out there. And being rooted in oneself, not to be rude about it or loud,
Right.
or you like it has to come with like a big bang, not at all, but just simply,
Yeah.
that's just not what's going to work anymore for me.
Right. And
Yeah.
I just want to add that, you know, the same thing happened with my husband and I, because
Oh, okay.
we actually did get back together after about a year or so.
Mhm.
And I think he felt completely different about me, because he respected me more. He respected my
Mhm.
boundaries. He
Mhm.
respected the fact that the way our relationship was before wasn't going to work going forward,
Mhm.
and we had to change, both of us.
Right.
And
Right.
now, you know, this is like, gosh, what, 4 years later, you know, we have a great marriage. We you know, we have respect, mutual respect, we have mutual boundaries. And the only way that it was going to work was we both had to put in our work, you know,
Right.
together. It's a mutual thing. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And
So
also possibly, your own self-healing. I truly believe that, when we are really in the midst of changing because either of midlife or because of circumstances that are changing, you lose a job or you open up a new business or you gain a new business or you lose a business or whatever the life change might be, right? We naturally change as human beings too. And so when we're not really going back into created wounds that had happened, whenever they had happened, and we just brush it over and we just put a band-aid on and we just keep moving on, but we never really addressed it with ourselves and really find out, is that still something that I need to be dealing with myself? Like, is that something that in other areas of my life, when this comes up, this emotion gets triggered? And then here I am finding myself, even though this situation has nothing to do with this, but the emotion and the trigger
Yeah.
has everything to do with that. And I feel like that's kind of, it sounds like that's also individually in your case had happened, where he also went on his own healing journey, looking, observing, doing some shadow work and some mirror work with himself. And you did the same. And now here you guys are, oh, this is what I found out about myself. This is what I found out about myself. And here we are sharing. And it's like, oh my God, this is why you felt this way, because I know now where this was coming from. This is
Right.
why I acted, because it was triggered by whatever. And I think that's the beauty, and that's such a privilege, when really not only true love is the stepping stone, but also love for self,
Yes.
you know?
Exactly. Yeah,
Mhm,
I feel like what happened needed to happen for both of us to become better people for
mhm.
ourselves and for our relationships. And yeah, I'm very grateful for that it happened, and I'm grateful that we were able to get back together, because it takes two, right? And if
Of
one is
course.
not willing or able or wanting, then the relationship is not going to work. But you always hear about people being married for decades, and you're like, gosh, how did you stay married for this long? What's your
Yeah.
secret?
Yeah.
The secret is, you really don't know, right? It just depends on each individual and how they make it work together, right?
Mhm,
If one checks out, it doesn't matter how wonderful this person is.
mhm.
If you're checked out and there's no coming back. But it's hard work. It's not easy, and sometimes it takes like a big divide, a big crash, a big explosion,
Mhm.
for it to be better again, you know?
Yeah, and for everybody to get a wake-up call in a sense too,
Exactly. It is.
Because
Sometimes
it's,
you need a wake-up call.
exactly. And then, just wanting to grow with each other. I feel like for me, if I had to put something down, I would say willingness, just that own willingness from your own self, saying to yourself, it's okay. I really can't stand this person right now, but I love this person so much. And this is worth to me, right? With all the good, with all the bad. And I personally have want to find a way to figure this out. And I will do anything that I can on my end to make this work, whatever that might be. But I feel like being self-observant and how do you call that word? Like when you are being, hmm, you really,
Self-awareness?
yes, but also like you take accountability. You're taking accountability for your own self and your own movements, and being really honest and transparent with yourself, telling yourself, well, I know that that's really not my cup of tea. I kind of suck at that. So I'm not blaming this person for not liking it either. You know,
Yeah.
but then the same thing would happen on the other side too, where now it's really the willingness that two people create internally to say, I suck here, I suck there. Um, I'm going to do this work, you're going to do that work. But then here we are wanting to do this together for each other, not only for oneself, because, we grow and we change and our bodies change every 7 years. Your mental aspect, like so many things are happening, but then also the fact to be like, okay, but this is worth to me. This is worth to me, with all the good, with all the bad, with all the whatever. Yeah, it's still something I want to continue and have in my life. And preferably, you know, the other person does the very same, because you're right. It's really challenging when one person is like expected you to just do all the work, and they just kind of like lean back and be like, well, she's going to take care of it because guess what? She's an empath. She has been taking care of it. You know, I know that she's going to find out a way, or he's going to figure out a way how it's going to make this work. So it really should come from both people to be like, you know what, babe, I'll got you. Like, I know I suck for this in this moment, but I'll promise I'll figure out a way, you know, and then to have patience in return too, and not be like, okay, you have one day to change, you know?
Well, it takes time. And sometimes,
Yeah.
it takes going into therapy or
Yeah,
whatever.
exactly.
But I mean, there's definitely deal breakers when it comes to relationships. And
Sure.
I've had a few of those in other relationships. But when there aren't those deal breakers, when there is hope, where there is
Mhm.
possibility, it's
Right.
really, really worth it to give it a try. Because,
Hmm.
at the end of the day, you can always find a new relationship. You can always find that new person, but there's
Right.
always something else that's wrong. Everybody has something. So you're just going
Yeah.
to change, one problem with another problem, and you have to start all over. And that is not what I wanted. I wasn't even when I was going through my journey, I had no interest in meeting anybody. I was
Right.
only interested in meeting me, getting to know
Right.
me
Yeah.
first,
Right. Exactly.
had no
Yes.
desire to be in any relationship at that time. And I have to
Yeah.
say, that was probably the first time in my life. I know for sure it was the first time in my life that I longed for solitude. I wanted the solitude was so sweet and delicious. I loved it. Whereas when I was younger and I was alone, I would feel lonely. I would always have to find
Right.
something to do, meet friends. God forbid I was alone for any period of time.
Yeah.
I always had to
Yeah.
fill that space and
Hmm.
that restlessness of never being enough, having enough. And
Hmm.
I don't feel that anymore at all, at all.
Hmm.
And it's such a
Hmm.
freeing feeling, I'm
So,
like, I've never been as content with
yeah.
myself or in love with myself, I should say, as I am
Yeah.
now. Because I
Yes.
feel like I've done the work and I'm doing
Hmm.
the work and I love me. I love whom I've become, you know.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
wish that for everyone. I wish everyone can find themselves like that. Sometimes I look around, I see all these young women, beautiful young women, and they're all on their phone, like they're crossing the street, they're on their phone. Yesterday, I'm at the beach. I see this girl, she's sitting, on the beach in the sand. The whole time she's sitting there, she is on her phone. I wanted to like go over there and say, honey, put that phone down. Go look around. How beautiful, But you
Yeah.
can't teach anybody that. It has to come from within. And
Hmm.
maybe it takes, I don't know what it takes. It's different for everyone, Sometimes it
Yeah.
takes tragedy or sickness or um
A
some
breakup.
wake up call for them to
Hmm.
realize that. And some people never do. And, that is okay for them, I guess. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm truly happy for you that you know, found yourself in all of this, you know? And do you think it's safe to say that really growing closer to God was a big part of you finding really you, but also back to Him
Oh, for
on many
sure.
aspects? Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. To me, God is, I see God in everything. I see God in a leaf. I see God in everything around me
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
live, nature.
Yeah.
That's where I find God. And
Yeah.
um, you know, God to me is everything.
Yeah.
And he's our creator. Like he made all these beautiful things and they all work together. It's amazing, how everything
Yeah.
is just
Yeah.
designed to work. You know, for
Right.
example, I see, you know, it's springtime and now all the animals are mating, right? And in my
Mm-hmm.
neighborhood, I see all these little squirrels and they're all
Oh,
running around the tree. They're chasing each other. They're trying to make out, you know, make babies. And the funny thing about the squirrels is, you know, they hide like the acorns or whatever you call those things. And and nature designed them to do that, to plant trees, you know,
mm-hmm.
and again, that's God's work. And
Yeah.
that's not a coincidence.
Not at all. Yeah, there's no coincidence with God at all. And you
No,
see,
no, there
I
isn't.
feel like this is exactly where, when I just look back on my own personal stories, what I kind of like experienced in the last 4.5 years, almost 5 now, I'm just, so now I'm able to say thank you for all those challenges, thank you for all those tribulations, and thank you for all those crazy hurdles and crazy setbacks and crazy amount of tears and heartache and pain, because I now see it. Like I can see it now, but going through it then, with a different mindset, before mind shifts had happening, before, I truly were found my rooted place in him. I mean, I always believed in God, but I'm just differently rooted in him today. Like there's just a type of faith that is unexplainable. Like it's anything that might come up is not even anymore for me worth thinking about it. For me, it's just like, okay, that's just what it is. There's a plan, and I'm moving on from it. Like, and back in the days, I would take days, weeks, months, sometimes to like figure it out and get over it and like be okay with it. Or
Yeah.
today, it takes me like maybe 10 minutes where it's like, okay, does it maybe upset me and make me sad? Yes, but is it more of a level of like, okay, I'm just radically accepting because my faith is so much bigger than my concern and my fear, that now everything becomes just okay. I guess that's what we're doing right now. What is the lesson in here? And now I'm searching for the lesson. I'm like, okay, let me see what is he trying to tell me? What's the what's behind the actual situation that is currently happening? And it seems like that, the more we practice solitude, and I resonate with what you said, like back in the days when we were younger, there was always time. We needed to fill time. We couldn't be alone. We could I resonated with that too. And so it's so amazing how it really changed once the focus became a different one. Not so much on the outside world anymore and all that noise, but now really the inside solitude with oneself, connecting upstairs. Like yeah, it's very interesting.
I think God just prepares us, to in life to
Hmm.
grow and to find him or
Hmm.
it, whatever. Well, I mean, God is different for everybody. And he just prepares us to one day when we're not going to be here,
Hmm.
or whatever is next for us, and
Yeah.
I think also like when you're young, you're so afraid of like, gosh, you can't imagine you're ever going to die, right? You don't think about it, but if somebody tells you about dying, you just, it's such a foreign thing and you're so fearful. Whereas
Yeah.
from my point of view now is, of course, I don't want to die. I want to live for as long as I can, if I can have a healthy life and a fulfilling life. But I'm also not afraid to die. I'm also
Yeah.
not afraid of what happens during that transition,
Hmm.
because I have faith that um, there's something else for me to do, for my
Hmm.
soul, not me as
Right.
this body, but my soul. And
Right.
our soul is just energy, and this energy is going to go someplace. So then that's
Hmm.
exciting, if you think
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah. You just know that you're going to go home fundamentally, like
Somewhere.
basically
Yep,
where you came from.
exactly.
Right.
So you try to do
Yeah.
your best that you can on this in this small little sliver of your timeline, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why it is, going back to the beginning of the conversation, that's why it is really so important to allow yourself to spiritually grow and find something that you truly feel like rooted in. And it might be for anybody something else. For me and you, it happened to be God. and for other people, it might just be something else. But I feel like, that's why it's so important to really practice staying in the now too, and just really being so grateful of what really currently is happening versus so focused of what can or what had happened, because there's nothing we can do about that anymore, but we certainly can change our mindset of like, okay, I'm gonna act today how I want my tomorrow to be. Like I'm gonna exactly behave today of what I want to attract for tomorrow into my life, and just be grateful for what I have,
Yeah,
because I
and I
mean,
just wanted to add one other thing that happened to me
yeah,
this weekend,
yeah,
or happened for me this weekend. Saturday, I was at a celebration of life, of a friend, a woman, who passed away at the age of 59. She was a mother to a 14-year-old boy, and she had battled with cancer for the last 7 years, and finally she succumbed to it. But when she was first diagnosed with this cancer, she was told that she had 6 months to live, and her sister advised her doctors, her sister's this girl's sister talked to the
mm-hmm,
doctors and advised them, do not tell her how much time she has to live. And she lived another 7 years because she didn't know. And she was a fighter. She wanted to live for her son, So
mm-hmm.
she kept fighting and fighting. She had the best attitude. She was always helping others. And, it was a very beautiful and also eye-opening message, going to this
Yeah,
event. And then I decided to go to church yesterday because I felt like I needed that, I really needed it.
yeah,
I felt like I had to connect with God. And
yeah,
the theme was so apropos and so beautiful. It was about forgiveness, learning how to forgive others, and that
yeah.
it is so important to forgive.
So good. Yes.
So important to forgive. Not
Yeah.
just saying I forgive you, but really
Really
feeling
mean it.
in your
Yeah.
core, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that you have to reconnect with somebody or
Mhm.
reunite the relationship, but
Mhm.
it's just you and your heart forgiving,
Mhm.
even if
Mhm.
that person isn't here anymore or you can't reach them,
Mhm.
but you and your heart forgiving, that
Mhm.
that tells God that you have forgiven that person, and now you can move on in life to the next thing, because that bitterness that we hold by not
Yeah.
forgiving, it's
Mhm.
it's suffocating, and it's like a cancer, if we don't do that.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, we all act from a place what we know best in this moment. You know, that we use the tools that we currently have in this specific moment, and we make decisions on the current mindset that we are allowed to be in. And therefore, if we're just taking out the part of you did this on purpose and we replace it with this person made a choice and a decision with the mindset and the tools they currently had exposure to, and we just say, I didn't like it. And like you said, I'm not choosing to reconnect with you, but I understand because I also made choices and decisions in my life from a different place, a different mindset with different tools that I had around me that I today would not make anymore. And I think like if we just look at forgiveness from that aspect of like, okay, I get it, you know, and always go back to you. Like, have you done something that you're not okay with anymore today? Yes, you did, because you didn't know better. You had no idea, you didn't do it maliciously. And listen, some people do it maliciously. I'm just talking about the option that when we don't do it maliciously and on purpose, we just didn't know better. We had no idea. And now that we do, and now that we grew closer to him and we found different more tools that we use on our daily basis, we wouldn't make the same choice, the same movement, the same action. We wouldn't even say the same thing. I know that for me, for a fact, that I today, if I were to be in specific spaces in my life, how I used to be, I would not react the same way anymore. But I couldn't back then. I had no idea how to. I didn't know how to use this tool, even though my mind told me but my execution didn't do that
Match.
for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
And I think that's sometimes also when we, have these situations around us where it's like, okay, I'm just going to give grace, like I'm
Yes.
just going to really extend grace and be like, I'm not perfect either. I most likely hurt so many people with my words and with my actions. And I'm grateful that I received grace. So I will extend the same, even though it didn't come from that person, but it came from somewhere to me. So I'm taking that something, extending it over here.
Yes, yes. And
Mhm.
then also not to have, judgment. And I think that is
Yeah.
probably one of the hardest things as a human, to put judgment aside, because we judge everything, right? Everything we
Yeah.
see around us, everyone, like I catch myself all day long. I'm like, Britta, stop, you're judging, you know.
Mhm.
Um, and that is still something I'm working on, but at least I have
Yeah,
awareness,
absolutely.
because
Absolutely.
everyone is different, and people are where they are at this moment in time. They don't know any better. And like you said, you have to give grace for them being the way they are right now,
Mhm.
and just, I believe in leading by example, you know, leading by example.
Yeah.
And if you do that, then maybe others will see
Pick up
and
on it.
will pick up
Mhm.
on it and learn something.
Yeah, hopefully, because that's all what we're here for, right? We're just here
Right.
to plant seeds,
That's
that's
right.
all
Yeah.
in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this was such a wonderful conversation, Britta. I'm truly so happy, first of all, that we met in life in this lifetime, that I was privileged enough to meet you.
Same.
Um,
Same.
and thank you for your open heart, and thank you for sharing really your transparent truth about specific things. And I'm so excited for you that you are, on your walk on your rainbow. And I know that you had to endure a lot of rain in between, but I'm happy that you're shining. You look very bright, and you look very kind of like ready for life. And I'm
Thank
and
you.
I'm
It's
so
actually
happy.
my light, my ring light,
Okay.
but yes,
Okay.
you.
Yeah, but I'm truly happy for you.
Yeah.
It's
Thank you,
not an
Sean.
easy path, and so I'm glad that you made it to the other side, because this is so much better.
Yeah, it is for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you
So
so
thank you
much
for
for having me. I really, really enjoyed talking to you as well. And hopefully we'll reconnect and do another session soon.
absolutely in German this time. You
In
guys heard
German,
it.
I promise. Yes, in
Okay.
German.
And for you podcast lovers, as always, if there's something on your heart that you want to share, maybe a story that can hopefully inspire somebody else out there, please be my guest. But until then, stay rooted, stay grounded, and always stay connected to love, the strongest force in the universe.